Hey, buddy. What's up? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Buddy. Hey. Woo! Go away. Go away. Ah. Ah. Get out of here. Get out of here. Ah. Are you hurt? Go. All right, so we're back. This is another video. Things are getting good at this point in the series. If you haven't seen the prior videos, I'd recommend to sort of jump back and get that context for what we're talking about here. We're talking about Thoreau and Walden, of course, by Henry David Thoreau. And at this point, we're at Thoreau's second chapter, Where I Lived and What I Live For. This is the second sort of content video. The first one was about economy. This one's about where I lived and what I lived for. And the next one is about the conclusion. I also have a PDF where I have sort of the essential quotes or my favorite quotes from this chapter in Thoreau's book. Let's jump right into sort of the concepts or what matters about this chapter. It's a very audacious chapter, you know. To title something Where I Lived and What I Live For is a very proud and bold thing to do. And I hope at some point I'll feel that sort of certainty about what my life is, that I can write a chapter like that. I surely could not right now, but Thoreau can. And the first idea is being awake to the world around us. That's the big idea, being awake to the world around us. And I want to start off by just reading one of Thoreau's passages about this idea. He says, "Every morning was a cheerful invitation to make my life of equal simplicity. I got up early and bathed in the pond. That was a religious exercise and one of the best things which I did." So it's currently 6 a.m. I woke up with the feeling that I wanted to do what Thoreau always talks about, the morning plunge. Talks about the morning as the time when there is a dawn in him, when he feels alive and awake to the world. And I think he means it in a both literal and sort of a more metaphorical sense. In the most literal way, when we think about what he describes here, it's jumping in the water in the morning, having this be part of a ritual. And when we think about water and what it feels like to dip in cold water, you're caught and you're brought to your immediate experience. And that's the important part of it. By starting every morning like this, he is regrounding, he's recentering himself on his experience and asking himself these important questions about life. In a more metaphorical sense, or in a broader sense, we can think of this bathing in the water as a sort of a baptism in a way, or playing with the idea of a baptism in a religious sense. He even says here that this was a religious exercise which he did, but it's centered not around his traditional religion, but his religion, his morality, the philosophy that he is giving for his own life. And when Thoreau talks about being awake, he says to be awake is to be alive. I have never yet met a man who was quite awake. How could I have looked him in the face? We must learn to reawaken and keep ourselves awake, not by mechanical aids, but by an infinite expectation of the dawn, which does not forsake us in our soundest sleep. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. Okay, so here he's talking about being awake, and he asks us, when you wake up in the morning, are you waking up by what he calls some sort of mechanical aid? Are you waking up by your phone, giving you an alarm so you can go to work, to go through your routine? Or are you waking up because the day is sacred and because you have something to contribute and something to do? I find this to be a very motivating idea, this question that's also a very scary one. When you wake up in the morning, what are you actually trying to do? And it's thinking back to my experience when I was living sort of like Thoreau, when I was living by myself for these 2 weeks, when you have nothing to do in your day, like he does. He had nothing to do besides grow his own food and these sort of things, which he said only took him 1 of 7 days per week. When you're tasked every day with what do I want to do, then you're faced with this profound also question of why does it matter? And with this, he gives us an explanation like we live, and every day we have this choice whether we want to be awake to the world around us or whether we want to follow this stream of this routine and this common expectation of what you're going to do. And it's through conscious endeavor that we can elevate ourselves and the people around us, and that we can provide value to others and to ourselves. It's not about providing value to others, but it's about living in a way that experiments and gets closer to finding out what life is, that we can come to a place where we can give value to others as well. And that's sort of what he's doing with his experiment, right? He's going out to the woods to learn something of importance, and this book is the explanation. This is what he is sharing with us after he's lived. And so this is part of the centrality of experience. You live and then you share, and you can only do it when you give yourself the space and you give yourself the time and the excuse to actually try living and to try asking the most important questions. And so I've gone on now about this idea of being awake and what it means for Thoreau in the context of his morning rituals. And now I want to move on to sort of what is our the most quoted and the most otherwise, it's quoted for a reason. It's beautiful, this most quoted passage that's about living deliberately and also the importance of sort of simplifying our lives. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life, living is so dear, nor did I wish to practice resignation, unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck all the marrow out of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms, and if it proved to be mean, why not then get to the whole and genuine meanness of it and publish its meanness to the world, or if it were sublime, to know it by experience and be able to give a true account of it in my next excursion. And this quote is awesome. It's awesome. And it's awesome because it's getting across also this philosophy of life, but it also describes it in such a poetic way, this to live deep and suck the marrow from life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put a rout to all that was not life. These ideas, they get across this sort of intensity and this sort of enthusiasm and strength by which it takes to pursue the most essential questions. And as I think about my own life, I live far differently than he does, but I think this principle holds true, that if you want your life to be better, you have the power to do it, and you can do it by simplifying and observing more closely and thinking more creatively about how it is that you fulfill these most essential needs for yourself, thinking about what you eat, about where you sleep, thinking about what you do for your work. These core questions are so essential to how we spend our time and how we find our meaning. And I think Thoreau, he reasserts that we have that power to do that. We have that agency to do that. And by asking ourselves the difficult questions, how we're going to simplify our lives rather than how we're going to expand upon them, we get closer to the answers that we're really looking for. So we've talked about two big ideas here. The first one being awake to the world, and that feeling when it's the morning and you're looking at your alarm clock and you're thinking, gosh, I have to do X, Y, Z thing. And how there is a world where you wake up and you ask yourself, why am I on this earth? What am I trying to do with my life? And that is the question that Thoreau gives us to ask ourselves. A second idea is this idea about living deliberately and simplifying. And that in a world of complexity, it is by we approach meaning, or we find what's most core and essential to us by stripping down the inessential and finding the core, finding the simple things by simplifying. That's all for this video. In the next one, we're going to jump to Thoreau's conclusion, where he leaves us with his final words, and I'll leave you with mine as well. See you there.